Welcome home. We are WNST. Towson, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We are positively here in the Mecca. Nancy Devine is staring at me. I wonder she's not wagging her finger at me here. The Gold Rush Doubler 7s we have from the Maryland Lottery. We're giving away. We're at Fadley's in Lexington Market, the new Lexington Market. We are here with Yankees, Orioles. Pete Caldera is our guest from the Bergen Record. Luke, I bring other reporters here, old schoolers. Luke Jones is here. By the way, you get a ticket. Everybody gets a ticket around. You get a ticket. Pete and I were talking Sinatra. Let's see what you've missed. We talked Sinatra, life covering the Yankees, 25 years of him covering the Yankees, doing all this stuff. And I said, we're going to save all the juicy trade stuff. Even though he's gone through, he knows about Mayo. He knows everybody's coming to get Jackson Holiday. He even knows about the kids catching down in Bowie.
I don't know that much.
You know a lot. He knows a lot, this guy.
No.
So, trading deadline, Luke is going on vacation. He's going to be gone for the next 10 days, sunning himself, eating Max Pizza in Wildwood up in Jersey, seeing Yankees fans, probably a lot more Phillies fans than anything else. What do you guys expect to happen here in the next couple of weeks?
I'll say this from the Orioles' perspective and how Mike Elias has operated now for 5 years, how he's operated the last couple years as they've become more and more competitive. I mean, led the AL in wins last year. We saw what they did last year. They got Jack Flaherty, who is, again, one of the big names on the market, which I think is ironic. Didn't work out so well for the Orioles.
We're not getting him again.
I wouldn't think so.
I don't think we're getting him.
And I don't think it was a case that he didn't fit or that they hated him or anything like that. He just didn't perform well, and, are you going to go to that same well again? So I think with Mike Elias, though, and we've talked about this a lot, Nestor, the Orioles being where they are with new ownership, still unknown in terms of where the payroll is going to go. I think cautiously optimistic, but until we see it, we don't know where that's going to be. I certainly don't expect it to be at the level where the Yankees spend or the Dodgers or anyone like that, of course. But I think it's trying to find that sweet spot as far as identifying a couple individuals who fortify the back half of the rotation, perhaps, certainly with the bullpen. We've talked about two arms I think they need there, but, and you can certainly attest to this, over the years we tend to fixate on CC Sabathia going to the Brewers, Randy Johnson going to the Astros. I mean, you think about all these moves that did pay off and pay huge dividends. Usually it's on the margins, or in some cases it doesn't work out at all. So I think as much as there's excitement and as much as I expect the Orioles to make moves, I've said this to you a few different times this past week, Nestor. Starting rotation, I think they're obviously looking for an upgrade over Dean Kramer or Albert Suarez as their number 3. But I think whoever that number 3 is going to be, because unless the Tigers say, we'll part with Tarek Skubal, and the Orioles say, we'll give you the premier prospects to do it, which I'm not saying is impossible, but I still think that's unlikely. I think whoever they acquire is going to be better than Dean Kramer, but probably closer to Dean Kramer than a healthy Kyle Bradish as your 2 and 3 with, take your pick, him and Grayson Rodriguez behind Burns. So I think fans are going to end up feeling, frankly, underwhelmed on paper. Now it's just going to be a matter of, do you identify someone's reliever whose numbers may not look great, but the peripherals say, hey, we think we can make a little tweak here or there, and he's got some upside? Is it a starting pitcher somewhere that maybe isn't having the best 2024, but has a recent track record of saying, we look at the K numbers, we look at the walk rate, we look at the home runs, we think this guy's going to have a better second half. I think the Orioles are probably going to be in that wheelhouse a little more than maybe fans would like in terms of finding a star, because, guys, I spent all of yesterday kind of just scanning the 30 teams in Major League Baseball. First of all, figuring out who the heck are buyers and sellers is still such a difficult endeavor now with the third wild card, but I just don't see a ton of big names that I'm necessarily confident that we're going to see moved at the deadline. I mean, I think a team like Toronto is such a wild card, but are they going to trade within the division? I think if it's the right deal, they probably should.
Same thing with Tampa.
But I think Tampa's intriguing. I think both those teams have starting pitchers that would be interesting, but this goes back to my question about ownership and where the Orioles are payroll-wise. Zach Eflin, someone like that, he's owed money next year. Now, it's not extraordinary money, but it's real money. Are you willing to pay? I look at Kevin Gausman. I look at some of the Bassett, who's owed money for Toronto. I mean, these are guys that Bassett's been good this year. Gausman has been down, but he's a recent All-Star, a couple times. I mean, is he just at 33 declining, or do you think, hey, he's going to bounce back? So I just think you cast such a wide net in terms of who exactly is selling, and then it's a case of what exactly are you looking for, and without knowing the financial piece of it, you're forced to kind of go back to your priors in terms of who the big prospects are that everyone wants from the Orioles, because everyone knows that, but I don't think there's a guy out there that the Orioles would trade Jackson Holliday for. I don't know if there's a guy out there that they definitively would trade Kobe Mayo for, unless, like I said, it's Tarek Skubal. So, Garrett Crochet, the White Sox are going to ask for the moon. We know they asked for the moon with Dylan Cease at this time last year, and the Orioles balked at it. So,
well, Pete does this every October, and he's got to clear his singing schedule because the Yankees playing. But the pressure on the Yankees every year is where we have felt it the last 2 years with the Orioles, where, hey, you're good, not good enough. And worse for your franchise right now, really slumping kind of bad in a weird way and feeling like they need to do something. The fans feel like they need to do something, right?
Yeah, well, Brian Cashman addressed reporters in Tampa Bay a couple days ago about, that obviously they'll be looking in all areas to try to upgrade, but it didn't mention anything specific, but their needs are obvious, and it's sort of the same as the Orioles. They're looking at pitching right now, and specifically relief pitching. At least they're not in a position where you need that frontline starter right now that you've got to spend prospects to get, and they could possibly fix some of their lineup deficiencies at the margins with a corner infielder, but. Right now, I mean, if I'm the Yankees, I'm looking at the Marlins closer, Scott. I'm looking at Kopech with the White Sox. I mean, I think these guys could help them. The Yankees need a better setup bridge to Clay Holmes. They need a lot more swing and miss in their bullpen than what they're getting now.
Yeah, we talked about
that
a lot.
Need, right?
They're right, because a lot of their guys' profile is the sinker, slider, ground ball types, and and certainly their closer is in that category too. So, but it's a seller's market right now. And as Luke said, listen, we don't, as we stand here today, we're not sure how all in Toronto is as being a seller. I think they should be.
Yeah.
I think they, it would help, get that.
We talked about Anaheim last year,
righted.
thinking they were and what they did. I don't think you can ever be predictive of any of these teams.
I mean, who's been a bigger disappointment than the Toronto Blue Jays in the last, 4 years with all that talent, just expecting them to fire, and they never have. Maybe it's time for them to rethink and reshape that organization and start. They really got to think hard about trading a Bichette or some of their other pitchers and their pitchers, because that's what's going to drive the market right now. This is what and. You mentioned the Angels, too. I'll be interested to see what they do. I mean, that should be a complete sell-off, shouldn't it? And they've got some pieces that teams could use. I expect
the A's to sell, right? I mean, A's have players,
well, of
right?
course, yeah.
Just to what degree? Like, I don't know if they're going to sell Mason Miller, but they have Lucas Erceg, who is also a swing and miss guy in their bullpen. That's someone I've thought with the Orioles could maybe identify, because I don't think the A's are going to accept what the Orioles would be willing to trade for. Albeit a fantastic phenom at the back end of the bullpen, but still a bullpen.
Well, the one thing I said to Luke at length, and this goes back to 33 years of me doing this, the Orioles can win any trade if they want to. Right? I mean, that if Skubal's available, the Orioles can win that trade by
they can pull off any trade. Now, we could debate whether it would be a win of a trade, but they can be the highest bidder,
Win meaning they can get it done. They can
no question.
They've never really ever been in that position ever. And it was always sort of perceived that the Yankees could win because they could drop the hammer of money, that they could take on players that smaller markets wouldn't want to take on. You mentioned carrying salary into another year. But, the Orioles are prime position and in first place. But to all of our points, the pitching's been disappointing to some degree in that they haven't had their best pitchers available, that they have to go and buy all these things that are broken now, is from the bullpen in Batista last year to the middle of the rotation, pick Means, certainly Bradish, that these pieces are different to replace when you're the Orioles and you go dealing off. Pick anybody, Mayo, nor any of these guys that turn into players. Ortiz is now a 5-6 year player in Milwaukee that's going to work on the cheap and the Orioles are going to get him for 6 months of Corbin Burns. Maybe they win a World Series, but you can't continue to burn it that way where you've been watching this for 25 years. Whatever mistake and stupid thing the Yankees might do,
you can cover it up.
They get an eraser on everything. The Orioles don't get an eraser on Chris Davis.
Oh, right.
You know?
But there's areas that the Yankees aren't going. I mean, listen, they made the Soto trade. I mean, as impactful a trade as you're going to make without having to spend, the top line of their prospects, right? I mean, Spencer Jones is probably the number one guy they have right now. Obviously, he's not going anywhere for anything they could get as help. In fact, he could be in the mix to help them in September. Jason Dominguez, another guy at the top of their prospect list, who's dealing with an oblique injury. They could get him back in September. He's a guy that they could actually use right now because of their lineup has been lacking since Giancarlo Stanton has been out. And
it's amazing. Both of these franchises have players that aren't on the field that are at that quad level that we expect Jackson Holliday to win games for this team. You called Mayo up this morning. You got him up. We're expecting – and these are good teams.
Oh, I was going to make this general point. As we're starting this weekend in Baltimore, you have two teams that are duking it out for first place, both teams on pace to win 100 or just under 100 games, and both fan bases are very anxious and not happy right now because of how they've been playing the last 3-4 weeks.
It's because of where they start, especially with the Yankees. I mean, we kind of had a 2022 flashback with this team when they kind of peaked in June and played at or under 500 for the rest of the way, and then of course they get eliminated in the playoffs. But I think this team is better constructed than that team. But they've played at the level. I mean, they're coming into Baltimore right now, 0-7-1 in their last 8 series. This is a team that needs a pick-me-up right now in a lot of ways. But it's going to have to come from mostly the guys that they have to pick it up and perform better. And you're really looking at the starting pitching with the Yankees too, because I mean that starting pitching was so good without Garrett Cole. When you thought that this was an area that if they could just stay around 500, get Cole back, then possibly they could take off. It's kind of gone on the reverse right now. Nothing to do with Garrett Cole. I mean, he's the ace, and he's back with no restrictions on him now. You're going to see him.
Just blame Nestor. They always blame Nestors. They've been blaming Nestors as long as I've been alive.
Well, Nestor pitches very well. He's got his. Have you seen his road home splits? They're really, it's strangely different. Got a 6+ ERA on the road this year and an under 2 ERA at home.
Well, you tell the fake nasty Nestor that you met the real one today. All right, let him know. He
Too
pitched
bad
here
he
for
pitched yesterday.
He pitched
He's
here
not
for
gonna pitch
3
in this
weeks
series.
to an infinity ERA 5 years ago.
And he really
and
thrived
we
against the
finally
Orioles.
get a guy named Nestor on the team that's not the long-year Christmas donkey. You know what I mean?
He just needed the big wall and left when he was a Rule 5 for the Orioles. He probably would have stuck at that point.
The best part about this, Pete, is when Palmer calls the games, and he always calls the Yankee series, that he has to say Nestor out loud like 50 times. So I hear Jim Palmer say my name. It's just a beautiful thing.
Well, the Yankees got rid of him too. He wasn't just Rule 5'd off their team. They released him at one point too, and Seattle picked him up, and then they got him back later on. But so Yankees made that mistake too, but at least they made up for it, I guess. But yeah, and he really loves pitching here and pitching. It means something.
In Baltimore.
When Nestor pitches against the Orioles.
Well, he didn't get his chance this time.
No, he's not going to pitch in this series. But,
October, baby.
But you'll see you'll see Cole. You'll see Luis Heel. Who
was better his last time out?
Better his last time out. He had, he was pitcher of the month, rookie of the month in May. Still, obviously, a prime rookie of the year candidate in the American League. I mean, his stuff really is electric. But you wonder about the uncharted territory he is, innings-wise, as a professional now, and coming off, essentially 2 lost seasons after rehabbing from Tommy John surgery. But, the way he's pitching now and the needs that they have in their rotation, Clark Schmidt, they may get back in mid-August, it seems. He's essential to them right now. And they need him to perform, closer to the level he was in May than he was in the earlier part of June. So that's part of the Yankees' dilemma right now. I mean, they're not getting any length out of their starting pitching right now. And it'll be a huge boost for them if Garrett Cole can be Garrett Cole tonight. And Heel can pick up where he left off in his last start. And then you get Carlos Rodon.
Yeah,
on
he's
Sunday,
the guy that's been a mess.
Who has, after a first month and a half where everything was clicking, it has gone back to 2023 on him in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's so unpredictable. And this lends itself going back to the trade deadline where, you're trying to evaluate these pitchers. You've seen what they've done. You try to look at peripherals, strikeout rate, walk rate, home run rate, all those different things. And yet, with Rodon, who high-priced guy, had success earlier this year, and now he's a mess. So it's it's not just trying to identify those guys. You're also giving up assets to go acquire someone, and then you're throwing them into an entirely new environment. I mean, we talked about Jack Flaherty at the beginning of our conversation. I mean, it wasn't that the Orioles hated him or he hated Baltimore, but it didn't translate. It didn't go well, and sometimes that's a bigger factor sometimes. And I think, when we're all as media or fans looking at potential trade scenarios where there is the human element there is such a thing as fit and all of that. So, but a name you mentioned, Kopech for the White Sox.
Yeah.
Look at the ERA; it's ugly, right?
Right.
I mean, he is one of those guys, and I was talking about this, especially in the bullpen, and you mentioned this with the Yankees, and it applies for the Orioles as well. When you're looking for swing and miss, I can go through and rattle off 10 different relievers who have a good ERA. Walk rate's good. They might be more of a ground ball guy, which there's still value to that. But, you look at some swing and miss guys that might have an ERA that doesn't look great, and we know how bullpen statistics are. You have 2 bad outings, and you're chasing your ERA for the next 6 weeks after that. But he's the kind of guy that I could see the Orioles looking at and saying, you know what? We like the peripherals. We love the stuff. They tried to do this with Fuji last year, right? It didn't work out. But, that's the kind of guy that I still think they could be looking at. And now, you're clearly not trading one of your premier prospects for that. But, second, third tier guys you have, I still think that there's going to be some of that. I'm not saying that's all they're going to do, but I would not be surprised if there's an arm that they're going to acquire where you look at the ERA and you just kind of scratch your head where they're saying, we think this is we're kind of buying low right now and we think it could pay some dividends. But if you want swing and miss, I feel like those are the kind of guys that you might need to take a gamble on because the Mason Millers of the world, you're giving up insane packages to try to get guys like that. And again, I don't even know if Oakland's going to move him. That's why I said looking at Ersig, who also misses bats, and he's not going to be cheap either because he's got some club control left. But I think that swing and miss stuff, it's so important. And in October,
and
in
12
October
teams
baseball,
need it. Every team needs it.
Everyone, even the teams who have it, or even have a surplus of it, they're afraid of guys getting hurt, so they're holding on to it. And even the teams that it's okay, they're looking for more, and it's just it's tough. That's why you're kind of looking. You mentioned Tanner Scott, old friend of the Orioles, obviously.
That's right. That's right.
You're kind of looking for that, a rental, and I'm not opposed to that idea, but at the same time, it's really unpredictable. I mean, Josh Hader, right off the bat, the Astros signed him to that deal, and it's just relief pitching. It's the nature of it. It is like the craziest, riskiest stock year to year. You just don't know how a guy's going to translate year to year.
The most volatile area of any baseball team, absolutely, and from year to year, how drastic it changes. But one of Brian Cashman, the Yankee front office's better traits has been to find some of these relievers with the peripherals that they find what's underlying, what's underneath the the surface stats that this guy could actually has something to contribute here. They did it making the Clay Holmes trade. Mm-hmm. Holmes was, that was an under the radar, who's this guy trade, and all of a sudden he becomes an all-star closer.
Well, they believe they can make guys better, right? Well, and from the football side, I always felt that coaches would take chances on talent and say, we can make that guy better. This group with the Orioles is the first group that has made young players and identified other teams' problem guys, first-round picks. I mean, we got a guy from Kansas City last year that nobody wanted. We picked up your scrap heap last year and got some mileage out of it.
Yeah.
But they think they can fix Fuji, right? They think if he's got an arm, we can teach him a pitch. We can drop arm angle. They believe in that part of it. The Yankees sort of were the beginning of that, of we can make players better.
Right. I mean, I think they saw something. I mean, their analytics department, works with their scouts and their front office to find a guy they can take a chance on. They've resurrected a couple of guys even this year. Jake Cousins, Tim Hill are in the Yankees bullpen now. They've actually been performing well of late. They took a chance on Michael Tonkin, who was released by two teams right this year, the Mets and the Twins. And he's performed very well in their bullpen now. So there's even guys now that they've, to use a Brian Cashman phrase, patched the tire with. But do they need more help? Absolutely, because they were depending on guys like Loizaga, who aren't here out for the year. Even to some extent, Nick Burdi. I mean, a guy who's had a terrible injury track record, was lighting it up again in spring training, and you're thinking, hey, this could be a premier setup guy, and now he's back on the IL for the second time. So there's a lot of volatility, there's a lot of passion in the tire, but there's going to be a lot of knocks on the door for guys like Scott and Kopech, and being a seller's market. They could drive that price up to where it's uncomfortable for a lot of teams.
Yeah, you mentioned the Angels a little bit earlier. Carlos Estevez, I mean, their closer. He feels like one of the better relievers that are realistically going to be available in the market. I mean, but it really is. Look at Jacob Webb, who's arguably been the Orioles' second best reliever this year. I mean,
he was a reclamation.
He was a waiver guy from the Angels last year. And now he pitched really well, then struggled in late September. Did not pitch well in their brief postseason against the Rangers. But I mean, he's emerged. So that's where it's so tough. Again, fans and as media, we're guilty of it too. You eye the big names, right? You eye the shiny toy. And a lot of times, those aren't necessarily going to be the best acquisitions at the trade deadline. I mean,
the Orioles dealt a shiny toy away a couple of years ago in the bullpen, and it worked out great for them.
Sure. And I think this is where Orioles fans and Yankees fans, even though right now, as both teams are struggling, they can take some solace in the fact that I'm pretty sure both these teams are going to be in the postseason regardless of what happens over the next few weeks.
You've never been able to say that, Pete.
I feel pretty confident in saying
you're
that.
You're a Yankee guy. Every year at the All Star break, you're like, well, October, can't sing my Sinatra songs that week. Might be Game 3. But I mean, this week they put a Duran show on sale here at CFG Bank. Everybody in my timeline, I'm going. I'm like, it's Game 3 of the World Series. Make up your mind. We've never had to say that around here, literally, right?
But it really is a case of these two teams, and I think this is another interesting factor. We talked about the 3 wild cards. I mean, at this time a year ago, no one was talking about the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, that doesn't mean that you copy what they're doing all the time, but it is food for thought in saying that, look, and the Orioles were in this boat last year, 101 wins. First time since 1980 they had won triple-digit wins. And they were swept in the divisional round. I mean, it's, it really, truly is about, fortify, try to get better, all that, but so much of it is still going to be what's Gunnar Henderson doing in October? What's Adley Rutschman doing in October? What's Corbin Burns and Grayson Rodriguez? What's Aaron Judge and Juan Soto? Are they at the absolute best of the best that they can be at that point in time? Because your stars are going to win it. And, there might be a couple underdog, off-the-radar kind of guys that contribute, but I think both these teams, no matter what they do at the trade deadline, it's still going to be much more about the guys that are on the roster right now, stepping up, staying healthy, being such a huge part of it.
See, he wasn't in Fulton County the night Leyritz hit the bomb when I was. And, it's always a Leyritz hitting it's always a Tito Landrum, dude.
I mean, Andrew Jones at the beginning of that series, my gosh, and the Braves are on their way. So much of it is, in fact, there is a luck element. There absolutely is the element of who's getting hot at the right exact time. And, again, for every Sabathia, every Randy Johnson blockbuster that guys are talking about 25, 30 years later, all those different big trades of the past, there are many more that have been forgotten, and there are some that didn't work out at all. So,
All right, well,
that's
two of
food
us
for thought.
are old, get off my lawn guys, and that would be Pete Caldera.
I'm on my way to that.
He's halfway. He's getting there. A few more summers away, you'll be that guy. The All-Star game, you hate the jerseys, I hate the jerseys. Before you got here, he and I were like, man, when Lee Mazzilli was a Met, and he was a Mets guy, and like all this stuff, what would make this better and more? I've always hated the home run derby. So because I've been to 20 of them, I've sat in the stadium. Well, it's other than Chris Berman back, and after I did the
format.
first 5.
Can we
right?
watch a ball go out of the ballpark? Do we have to have 10 pitches in 6 seconds?
I do miss the simplicity of the old format. I do.
Let's enjoy it. Let's not make it
not to mention, let's not have guys straining
the
obliques because
dash.
they're swinging the bat 45 times. Let's not have Gunnar Henderson tweak his oblique and then he's on the IL to start the second half.
Yeah, let's let Aaron Judge do that.
That's another thing. I think it promotes I don't know if it promotes injury, but certainly the risk factor is.
Well, fix the All-Star. Is there anything they can do? Because I'll tell you this: the Orioles made this big hire this week. Welcome to Baltimore, Katie Griggs, and part of her gig is that she ran All-Star games, and we're going to get an All-Star game. They're putting $600 million. You think like the stadium now? Wait till they put another deck in the upper deck. Kids can come down, drink beer, and do all that. So we're going to get that game here, and I was here in '93. I was on the air. I was a part of it. The city was electric. I'm not saying it won't be that again. But it won't be like it was in '93 in that just the shiny objects of the game and the star power of the game and all of that. But the uniforms are the thing I think all of us hate the most. But what the hell are they? Do you see these things they're wearing this week? They look like they're in Palm Beach somewhere. But what do you think?
Yeah,
what makes it better?
Well, no, uniforms are one. Go back to having the Orioles wear the Orioles home uniforms in Texas, and the Yankees wear the pinstripes there, and the Cubs wear their road uniforms, and the Dodgers wear their road. That was so interesting to me. That was, I mean, we were talking about old school stuff. Yeah, Mike Schmidt and Pete Rose and Steve Garvey
just
and all those guys.
Just one picture out of the dugout, the 1978 All-Star game.
In their uniforms.
It's classic.
Yeah, that was amazing. Next to your guy on the Mets from 1980, John Stearns or somebody like that. Yeah, that was so cool for me.
Now the Mets wear their pajamas. They wear this black nonsense. They look awful.
Some of these City Connect uniforms have been rather strange.
You want to look like Tom Seaver, and I'm an Oriole guy from '69.
I'll say credit to the Yankees for this. They haven't gone into those alternate uniforms. So it's either the road gray, which I think that uniform looks better now than it ever has.
I think they upgraded that.
Upgraded
of all the talk about Nike and Majestic, or not Majestic, Fanatics, and just the you-know-what show that's been, that's been the one positive where I'd say that's like the old school, not 1980s, 90s Yankees, but old school road uniform.
It helps that they don't have the name on the back that's shrunken down, and it would ruin the whole thing, obviously. But Aaron Judge actually gets a big assist on that, because when the Yankees played the White Sox in the Field of Dreams series, they wore uniforms similar to that, the older style, the stuff that Mantle wore in the 50s, right? And those teams. But Judge went to one of the Yankees equipment guys, clubhouse attendants, and said, hey, we should look into this. This is a uniform we should have all the time. And they took it up the chain to Hal Steinbrenner, and before this season,
Aaron Judge is the reason.
Ation Judge gets a huge assist because he was among the Yankees. And the
Orioles wore black on Fridays for Scott Erickson for 25 years, and he's just friggin' Scott Erickson. At least Aaron Judge made this move.
Yeah, and the Yankees like that, and they got it done. So he gets a big assist for that one.
All-Star game, because you mentioned this, I will say this again. I said this to you a few weeks ago. I still think it is in a much better place than what the Pro Bowl has become, what it always was, but now it's
two-hand touch.
Yeah. It's just at a point where why are we even doing the event anymore?
Yeah.
And the NBA even screwed up the NBA game. How did they do that?
That's what I was just going to say. The NBA All-Star game this past year, that was an abomination. How bad that was. So I still think Major League Baseball with the All-Star game, it is the closest in terms of replicating, especially in this day and age where, hey, starters aren't going deep anymore anyway, and it's all about bullpens.
Yeah.
But
one thing is most of the guys go play in the game too, though. Baseball, the players show up.
You almost took the words out of my mouth because I'm going to mention a specific name. I'll tell you something that's going to not fix it, but it's going to be make this game better than it would have been with anyone. Paul Skeens starting the All-Star game is a phenomenal idea. I have no idea if he's going to be shut down in August. I have no idea if this kid's going to stay healthy.
They shut him down a no-hitter the other night.
But but his talent and what he's done since he's arrived in Pittsburgh, in one of those cities where, save for 2 minutes 10 years ago.
Well, Strasburg was that way in D.C.
But it's just capitalize on this. And I praise Major League Baseball. And there are plenty of things I beat Major League Baseball up about in terms of marketing their game or not marketing their game very well. Great idea. Because ultimately, yes, you want players in the game who are deserving. I think we all agree with that. But at the same time, it is an exhibition that is meant to showcase the game, both with the greats that are in the twilight of their career who maybe aren't the most deserving, but you still want them there. And in this case, where you have a phenom, think back to the Bird back in the 70s, right? You want to showcase someone like that.
Two of us remember that game.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was before my time, but I know about it. That speaks to how relevant that was, how important
to baseball,
that was.
Man, that was they never seen nothing like that when you were 7 years
but
old.
I just think this
is
is one of those times where I like seeing Major League Baseball say, yeah, you know what? Maybe there's a veteran starting pitcher who you could give it to, and I'll hear Ranger Suarez and some other guys in the NL who are having great years and pitched from opening day with their big league club. But
everybody's watching the first inning, so make it good.
I love that. I really do love that. Beyond some of these things we just mentioned, you're never recapturing the mystique of pre-interleague play. There was something about in '93 when Barry Bonds stepped onto the field in Camden Yards. That was it was different.
Yep.
The Giants were never going to come to Baltimore and play. At that point we didn't think. So you're never going to recapture that. But some of what we just mentioned, which I don't think any of these things are all that unreasonable, fix the uniforms, and just make sure you're marketing the game. Celebrate young players. Make sure any guy that's on his way out, Cal Ripken his last year wasn't deserving of being in the All-Star game, but it was a no-brainer. Same with Tony Gwynn that year. And we saw how everyone remembers that All-Star game. But it's just celebrate the game. And for the most part, the good thing is it seems like most of the players do want to be there. And that's been a challenge with the Pro Bowl and different things like that.
We got to take a break. Baseball guys get here all day. Pete Caldera is here from the Bergen Record. Luke Jones is here. We're at Fadley's. Look at you want that. I'm going to get you your own. This is mine. I'll get you one to go.
Okay.
Pete Caldera's heading over to the ballpark. Luke's going to stay with me. We're doing football, right? Luke's on vacation next week. It's all brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Lottery. We got the Gold Rush Sevens doublers. We're at Fadley's. Our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions make our water crystal clear. They've been doing that for me. I had a leak, too, so I had to call them because of plumbing. I got like a corroded pipe thing going on. Also, our friends at Jiffy Lube Multicare. Nothing corroded there because my wife got our car lubed and the oil changed a few weeks ago out in Timonium. Back for more from Fadley's. My thanks to you, Pete.
Thank you, Nestor.
Thank
Appreciate
you, man.
It. Nice to be on.
The summer wind came blowing in. Just right here from across Jersey. We'll be around all next week, All-Star Game Week. Luke's going to be at Max Pizza up in Wildwood. If you see him up there, honk the horn. He'll be the guy sitting with Flacco up there. I am Nestor. We are WNST. Back for more from Fadley's on the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. Stay with us.